Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. And you can see, for those of you watching this on video, right out on a deck over the ocean, right where right in the area where Marc D'Antonio used to spend time as a child, up here on the coast of Maine. I'll be bringing him in just a minute. So this is sort of a last minute special type show. The show I had earlier this week did not go well. I did not put it out there. So this is a 1 hour show. I like to do a show every week. And so I contacted my good friend, Marc D'Antonio, and said, hey, what about doing a show in a couple of hours? And he said, fine. About what? I don't know. Let's just talk. So we are going to touch on, or at least I'll try to. There's really not a whole lot to say, but we'll touch on the congressional public hearing that's going to happen next Tuesday. Maybe I'll know a lot more about it on Tuesday after it happens. Trying to find information about it, it's not real easy. So I want to thank everyone out there that listens to the show. I want to thank all the supporters, and anyone can do that. The support link is right on our website, podcastufo.com. And let me announce the Charles Lear did the Virginia blog the week before. So he got interested in this whole thing that's been happening down in Brazil. So he wrote this one. It's Violent UFO Encounters in Brazil. And it's a fascinating one. I am familiar with this one. I had heard about it years ago. Never really looked really deeply into it, but it's a good one. And by the way, Charles Lear who's been writing these blogs all these years, has written a book, and it's going to be published on June 1st. So he's going to be a guest in mid-June sometime. And before I forget, next week we have Sean Cahill from the Princeton. He was the chief at arms and overseeing that whole Tic Tac UFO incident. He'll be on next week. Well, I did reach out to Lou Elizondo today to see if perhaps he could be on the show for just a couple of minutes and talk about what he thought about the UAP going live next week. And he's in Washington, D.C. He was not available today, and that's unfortunate. But next best thing, we got Marc D'Antonio. How are you, Marc?
Next best thing?
All right, the best thing. Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
We all have our place, right? So it's cool.
That's right.
Well, it's nice to see you, Martin. And I see you're up there in Tennant's Harbor.
I am. Yep. And we were talking off air how I know it's really it's probably going to drive people crazy, but there is a Maine accent, and they do talk a lot like this, right?
That's true. Yeah,
they do. And here's my Maine hat right here.
Yeah. Right there. So, I used to go lobstering off the coast there, and
you did.
Spent a lot of time out there in the ocean with the boats and hanging out there and getting seasick because I'm a landlubber, not I didn't.
Well,
that's a lot.
I got a dock this year for my boat, and I just found out that the boatyard has Wi-Fi. So you know what that means, don't you?
You're gonna be on your boat doing
the show.
Your shows.
Again, last year was a disaster because the Wi-Fi was the hotspot on my phone, and it ate up data really quick and went dead in the middle of a show. And it was interesting. But should be a great summer up here. It's really beautiful right now, and I love it up here on the coast. Anywhere on the coast is good.
Is it long sleeve? You in long sleeves or short sleeves?
I'm in long sleeves, but it was actually hot out here on the deck today.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, it's about 75 here today. Actually, it's a nice spring day.
That's right. And so I want to talk about a whole bunch of things. I know I've watched a couple of your streams that you do, your sky watches out in Arizona remotely, which is fantastic. But for right now, I don't know if you had a chance to read, but there is. Let me pull this up. There is a report that is, a hearing that is going to be public, which is coming up on Tuesday, and there's probably not really a lot to know right now. And I really have to caution people. This is probably going to be disappointing to a lot of people out there that are thinking, wow, we're going to be hearing about aliens and the encounters are from another planet or something like that. And I think that they're probably more or less going to focus on, in this public hearing, what are the safety, um, what are the safety issues that these things may be causing first. I think that's probably what they're going to get in there. And here's this is a quote I'm just going to read right here. The federal government and intelligence community have a critical role to play in contextualizing and analyzing reports, said Representative Adam Schiff of California, a Democrat who is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He said the purpose of the hearing was to illuminate one of the great mysteries of our time and break the cycle of excessive secrecy and speculation with truth and transparency. I think that's a pretty good statement right there. And you know what this will, the openness, if there is indeed openness, it's better for them, because it's going to eliminate a lot of the conspiracy theories, and that aliens are bottled in the basement of the Pentagon or something.
Well, I never put much credence in the fact that the aliens were being penned in down in the Pentagon or any black site whatsoever. I don't think that. I think those are all stories born out of fantasy, if you will. I mean, I'm not sure, and I can't say for sure, but the odds are really, really stacked against it, right? But let's be clear. I'm an astronomer. I believe that life exists out there, and I actually think it may have made its way here. So, is it illogical to think that they wouldn't be here, wouldn't be in our space, occupying our space? No, it's not illogical. But we do have to use the rigorous application of science in order to find it. Because let's be honest, it's the rigorous application of science that makes any of the great strides on the planet, right? Um, I mean, it is true. You can't think your way and summon aliens and just expect them to have a kumbaya moment with you just because you think it's so. I mean, we need to do more than that. And whether that process works or not, it isn't a process that at this point in our science and our understanding is an acceptable manner to prove the existence or the intelligence that might be among us. So, um, yes, whereas I like science and I adhere to it, I am open to the other things. But again, if they're really far-reaching, then I don't know what that means. I've seen so many CE5 um, sessions where people are marveling over satellites that are tumbling and they're blinking and they shine a laser and think that they're shining back at them.
Yes.
Yet I take pictures
Yeah.
of these things and show them a dashed line on my camera going across the sky. It's a tumbling satellite.
Have you actually gone to one of those and did this?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah. There's one.
yeah.
My friend Donna was at one and was telling me basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And then one of the nights she went, it was foggy and rainy, and they said the invisible craft had landed in the yard. So, what are
Well,
you going
not
to
to
say about that?
disappoint people that are paying big money to see these things, right? I mean, see, so here's where I really, really have a problem. Okay, if it's a protocol that works, then it should be for all humanity. It shouldn't be for only those who can afford it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I get really bent out of shape when charlatans come along and claim that they're the conduit through which these beings talk. Billy Meyer, for instance, that's baloney. Billy Meyer is a faker and a liar. Okay, sorry, but that's true. That's
Well,
how
there's
I
so
see it.
much evidence for that. Mark is not just throwing this out there. There is tons of evidence
Of
that
course, of course.
he has
I
faked
don't ever
many,
take
many things.
I don't make flippant statements, but I will say that um, for the CE5 protocols, I've watched charlatans calling in UFOs that were actually flares off the coast, proven
Wow.
flares. And everybody left thinking, "Wow, that was a good. I spent $2,000 and I got my money's worth." No, you
Do you
didn't.
mean, are you, Mark, are you trying to tell me that someone set off the flares purposely, like in concert with this situation?
No one knows for sure. I
Yeah.
just know that in this particular location, there was a flare exercise going on off the coast.
I
And it was
see.
kind of coincidental that they were also doing the CE5, maybe knowing that the flares were going to go off, and thus those flares would become the object of attention. Let's be clear.
Hmm.
If you ever saw one, I've seen flare drops, many of them. Okay, right over my head, actually. Fighters from Luke Air Force Base were flying over my head when I was in the Arizona desert and dropping flares right over my head. And they are an unearthly orange. They look really, really unbelievably unreal. They just look surreal. And it's a beautiful color. It's a beautiful glow. And I can understand why people would feel that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I do know that this particular one that was done off Florida, that was a well-known, documented flare drop, and it ended up becoming, absconded with as a CE5 success. And I thought that was a blatant lie and the worst thing they could do to people. So we
Right.
get people like that all the time, right? That try to, play off things that may not be true. So this is why people need to remain skeptical. They need to remain skeptical,
Yep.
and that's why knowing your facts, knowing your science, can help you.
Well, I will talk a little bit. You and I had talked briefly why you're here. One of the reasons you're here is because I decided I made a tough choice and decided to not post the podcast that I had earlier on Tuesday. Now I'm been in touch with both people. Preston Dennett, I really I almost consider him a friend. I mean, he's a very, very nice guy, and so we're good. But his guest that was with him was making outrageous claims. And when they got to the point where I thought they were a little bit dangerous, then I decided to end the show early, and I decided to eliminate the show. And so anyway, I'm not going to get into the details too much, but it just is just, right off the bat, one of the first things she said was she was basically piloting the UFOs and going through the rings of Saturn and, all these type of things. And, I stopped her and said, you realize what you're saying here, and how do you expect a listener to believe that? Well, I did get some email from people that were very upset that I took it down, that were listening, that were, involved in the whole situation. Someone kind of has told me that I have something against experiencers and what's wrong with me, almost like pulling a card on me. So it has nothing to do with that. If you have to be skeptical, I like to
Right,
keep this show clean as much as I can.
Mark.
And
It's very simple. It really comes down to this: people make these extraordinary claims, but they don't provide the necessary extraordinary proof.
yeah,
And when people say "trust me," all right, or when people say no, honestly, okay, those are preparatory words for something that's to come, and they're trying to possibly pull something off on you, not even if they may not even realize it. There are people that actually do believe that they do these things, and so they would pass a polygraph. I've taken a number of
exactly.
polygraphs in my
Mhm.
life for my work, and I can tell you they're not hard to, I mean, they're hard to they're hard to fake. They're hard to pass with flying colors if you try to lie. So I know that it can be done. People have done it, right? But I can tell you that um, listening to someone say those things, the next thing you want to say is fantastic. That sounds fantastic. Let me see the proof. Let me see the videos on your ship. Let me meet the aliens. Who are they? And
Yeah,
let's talk to them.
I more or
Oh, I
less
don't
said
have any of
something.
that.
Yeah, I more or less said something along those lines when she said, "Well, I have science to back this up," and I stopped her right there. I said, "Well, let's hear about the science." And
Yeah,
she
great.
shifted in her seat, and she said, "Well, this guy's not actually a scientist,
Uh,
but he's got a YouTube channel,"
oh,
and that was kind of enough.
yeah.
Enough.
I
Anyway,
hate that. Yeah, that goes to whenever someone says their proof is a YouTube video,
yeah.
that becomes problematic.
Well, I said that I have said that many times
Not that every
on this.
not that every YouTube video is a lie, because they're not.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
there are some YouTube videos that tell wonderful truths, scientific accuracy, not so scientific but accurate, and so you just have to, well, you have to do what's missing with a lot of people these days, and that's critically think.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. You really have to be aware of.
you have to ask questions.
Yeah, and when it comes to YouTube videos, it's so tough because there are such good fakes out there too,
Yeah,
and I mean, the CGI is only going to get better. Someone,
yeah.
if you want to ask questions, please post them like this gentleman did right here. I don't know if Mark would like to comment on this or not. What's your opinion on Bledsoe, Chris Bledsoe?
Yeah, I don't actually have an opinion on Bledsoe. I have stayed a little bit away from that because
Mm-hmm.
I want to remain focused on the science of image analysis and video analysis, and I haven't done anything with Bledsoe for Bledsoe, and have no opinion on Chris Bledsoe at the moment. But that may change.
Yeah. Now, Mark, I sent you a picture the other day. Did you happen to? Do you know that picture? And are you familiar with that picture?
Yeah, was that the one from, is it Costa Rica
I
or
believe. I believe it's Costa Rica.
somewhere in South America? There was a,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. And
That
I'm
was
going
a,
to pull that up here, and so people will understand
yeah,
what we're
yeah. That's
talking
a good
about here.
idea.
But
I've
I
seen
mean,
this
I
before.
remember seeing this years ago
Yeah,
when I first was starting to look into the UFO topic, and I wondered about it. I said that's just too good to be true. And when something's too good to be true, that's usually what it is.
well,
So yeah,
sometimes you're right, and but you can't go into anything with blinders on either, and just say this is a UFO, absolutely, but you also can't say it's not a UFO, absolutely. You've got to give it a chance, right? Every piece of evidence I see, I don't make a determination by looking at it and just saying, "Oh, well, just making a pronouncement." That's ignorance, and that doesn't do it. That does everybody a disservice who's
yeah,
interested in knowing.
there's definitely enough of that out there.
Yeah, there's plenty of that out there, But yeah, if you bring up the picture
Yeah,
again.
I had to convert the file, so I'm just working
Okay.
along as we go
Well,
along here.
anyway, this photo purports to show a disk UFO in a photograph, an aerial photograph, and I can't remember, they were doing aerial photography
Yes,
for oil
it was a
prospecting,
topographical.
topographical.
They were looking at a lake, some type of condition of a lake,
Okay,
and here it is right here. And
there it is.
I
Yep.
will post this for those of you who are listening just audio. I'll post this in the show notes or somewhere. I'm not sure if we're gonna have a lot of show notes, but anyway, here it is for those of you seeing this visually, and it's I mean, it's perfect angle. This is from overhead about 10,000 feet. Now this is zoomed. It appears to be zoomed, but so the plane was flying about 10,000 feet, and it was shooting directly down to get the layout of the
Yes.
topographical conditions of the lake. And so that disc is, I don't know. I mean, do you see anything in it that makes it look like it was really there? According to what came out is that this is directly from an original negative, and it had not been toyed with. I don't know if
Yeah,
you.
I believe that's the actual thing that it was, without a
Mhm.
doubt. I mean, to me, I ask all kinds of questions. Could it be what's called a conchoidal fracture in the cover on the camera? Could it be um, some type of oil droplet inside the housing? Perhaps could it be something else? I mean, you see that to the upper right of that thing, you actually see this stark black line, right?
Oh
Is
yes, I
that
see it.
actually is that actually a um, reflection of the horizon reflected in this object, whatever it is? So there's a lot of questions I have, but none of the questions end with it's definitely a UFO. No, with a statement that says it's definitely a UFO. They all just ask more questions, and I've seen this thing many years ago. It's got to be what 25 years old or something at
I
least.
think it was from 1975, but don't
Okay.
quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. What I would like to know is from the same camera, I want to see the next frame and the previous camera,
Exactly.
previous
Yeah.
frame. So where are those?
Yeah.
And if you look at it really carefully, you can see that it has what looks like a distinctive shape. The only problem I have with it is um, if you look at it, there's an issue with it, and that is that on the right side of it, it's illuminated by what you would call the sun. And if you look on the ground, you can see that the sun is coming from the lower the lower right, just below center right, and it's heading to upper left right. Okay, kind of thing. At least that's how it looks. I'm trying to see. It might be. But if you look at the brightness on the ground, okay, and the shadows of the trees, it kind of shows you where the light's coming from. So you'd expect a shadow on that, or an illuminated side on that lower right side. What you would not expect is for it to be illuminated on the upper left side.
Hmm.
You wouldn't expect that. That would be in either shadow or much reduced brightness. So I'm not sure. What would actually work, in fact, is if that's not a disk you're looking at, but a depression. If that was a depression into, say, the glass or the housing, then maybe this would work. So, but again, the next frame would have it as well as with the previous frame. And I don't think they would spend time doing aerial photography with the camera if it's in a fixed housing that has some kind of damage to it. They would fix that housing. But if the camera was able to move shot to shot in some way, then maybe they would move it over for the next shot. I don't know. But either way, the lighting is wrong on it for the lighting that's on the ground.
Well, that makes sense. And as someone that does a little bit of painting, you always have to look at, the direction of the sunlight
Yeah,
to make the
So,
shadowing work.
so that's kind of where it leads me. That's where that leads me. In fact, that's where it led me years ago when I looked at it for the first time.
Yeah.
And I basically had to say, well, geez, I was hoping it'd be a smoking gun, but you can't really say it with any kind of definition that it's the smoking gun, the quintessential UFO photograph, because it just isn't, unfortunately.
Yeah. And is there one? I think you and I had a conversation in Phoenix or somewhere, and I asked you that question. Do you, Mark, everything you've looked at, have you seen like a smoking gun photograph? And you said there was one that really,
I'm waiting for the smoking gun,
yeah,
but
you've
there is
seen one
one.
that was really good. I think you said something like that, right?
There was one video that I have. One is a little video clip. It's 3 seconds long, but it is probably the one which I think is as close to a smoking gun possibility as any, and that's the Nick Mariana footage. And I believe that was Montana in
Oh,
like
yes.
1953 or something like that.
Is that the one near the towers, or am I
Yes.
thinking? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is quite amazing. If I
Now,
remember right, isn't there 3 of them or something like
two.
that? Hmm.
There were
Mm-hmm.
two. Imagine this. Okay, you're there. He was looking at a stadium. I forget what he was doing. Maybe a sports writer or something. I don't remember the details.
Yeah,
But
that's
he was
right.
there. You remember?
I think he was. I think I thought it was Navy, but maybe it was. There was one that had something to do with sports.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
those are the details that
this could be the one.
I could be messing this up with details, but the one thing I'm not messing up is he filmed this with a movie camera, and he managed to get 3 frames of these 2 objects moving side by side through the sky.
Yeah.
Okay.
In formation. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and they went behind towers, light towers, whatever that were in this location. And so when I looked at that, my first thought was, okay, what was flying in the sky at that time? And unless this is kind of a funny thing, unless we're being lied to, there was nobody in the air at that time. Nothing in that direction at all. Now, could that be wrong? Maybe, right? And you gotta reserve the right to think that maybe they were wrong about it. But it was at a time when we didn't have the best radar systems like we do now. But these two objects were moving through the sky together, and they were really, really bright. Now,
let me see if I can find that while we're talking about it. And
yeah, you have to understand that these objects might have been in formation, flying together in the sky. And the thing that I like about this case is that it does not have any kind of signature of an astronomical object of any kind. Okay, when we see things in the sky that seem to be moving through the sky, they're either satellites or they're meteors, right? And these objects will do one of two things. They'll either move through the sky and move relatively slowly, satellites, or they'll move very quickly through the sky, meteors. But satellites don't move as slow as these things. They don't move as fast as these things did. And a meteor that low in the atmosphere to be seen during the day would be something burning up in the atmosphere, being sunlit. You'd see smoke trailing behind it. It would leave a trail. And we didn't see that at all.
Right.
And at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of space junk to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. So, and that also would have left a trail behind it of smoke.
Do you think that was like in the 1950s?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Nick Mariano.
Okay.
Yeah, Mariano, I believe. Maria, no. Try that. See
well,
that is.
Rating.
Here's a word from your sponsor.
Yeah. Oh, well, I thought I could find it, but I mean, I have watched it a number of times, and unfortunately, it's just not easy to get a hold of. So, if you want to check back, anyone wants to check back, I'll try to put them in the notes if I find it. But yeah, I do remember that, and there was a similar one too off of the island of Catalina Island off of California. A very similar one. Do you remember that? Filming of I think it was another formation of UFOs.
I'm trying to remember.
A long time ago, also.
I don't.
Anyway, remember. I'm not going to bother to try to look for that because I can't find this.
All right.
Marino one.
Mariano. Yeah, no,
Mariano, I mean.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it too. I can't find it, which is odd because I found it like immediately when I was looking for it the other day.
Well, the government erased it, right? Yeah, that's what they did.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Affect your mind up there, your Lieutenant's Harbor.
That's right. Sure.
Yeah.
But, well,
yep.
Yeah, we were talking about that. You can say, yep, when you're breathing in and breathing out. They do this. Yep. It's pretty funny. Yeah. Now, are you familiar?
All my cousins were from Maine. So, I mean, anytime we went up there, it was just an argument about whose boat I was going to use when I was there for the month. Okay. Because you didn't use your car. You parked it and you left it. And we would take the boat to go from Port Clyde over to Friendship, Maine. And we would go to Friendship for dinner or get stuff. We'd go to my cousin's general store in downtown Port Clyde. She since sold it to
Linda Bean. Yeah. Linda Bean owns everything up here.
Yeah.
LL Bean.
Yeah. And actually, my cousin's house was right there on the jetty. It's the house that's right across the street from the jetty going out the
beautiful
dock in Port Clyde there.
Yeah.
That's what I said, Port Clyde there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's right behind me is a scallop boat. I've been looking at that all winter.
Yep.
Yeah. Here's a question. Foreshore wants me to ask you about the Swedish winter clip from 2012. Are you familiar with that one?
Swedish winter clip. No, let me look that up because.
So I'm going to ask this if anyone wants to do something like ask a question about that. If you can find a link and post the link at the same time, I'd be able to pull it up and look at it. So, Jay Allen, you are asking if the Virginia video is out. It will be out within a couple of months. I did see the
He
screener, I do
wasn't
believe.
talking about the Norwegian spiral video, was he?
Oh, the Norwegian spiral video, that's a failed launch, right? Is that the one?
Yeah, actually, I called that. Well, upon seeing it, I called it as a failed rocket launch, probably a ballistic missile launch from a submarine, based on where it was. And everybody just roundly criticized me and called me an idiot and all these famous choice words, which I laughed at. And 2 days later, it was announced that indeed it was a rocket that had to get blown up, launched from a submarine.
Yeah.
And guess what? I never heard anyone say, "Gee, I'm sorry for all those bad things I said about you." And I had to laugh because they're always quick to criticize, but then they go and hide in the dark when it's time to apologize, right?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, you're doing the good work of someone that is really, keeping everything clean in a way. I mean, there are so many times when you could certainly jump to conclusion about something.
Yeah.
I always appreciated. I just got to tell everyone this. I think it was 2017 or something like that when we were both out in Phoenix. Was that the year? I had
Yes.
I had drove all the way to Phoenix from Maine, and
Gosh,
somewhere out in the desert,
such energy.
I was taking a picture of the desert, and I got the picture, and I'm looking, and there's a disc in the picture, and so I showed it to you we were sitting around in Phoenix, and I showed it. So what do you think of this picture right here? And you're looking at it, and you're looking at it really close, and you say, it almost looks like you have something on the window. So I went to the car, like a little bit later on. I went to the car, and sure enough, there was a little piece of grass on the window that was stuck to it at an angle that very
Sorry to
much
be a
worked
killjoy,
pretty
but
good.
I
I'd rather know, and I think I think most people would rather know.
think
I would
that
hope so.
in general, I think that's right, Martin, because again, I don't know everything. I don't know all, and I don't ever really try to say this was definitely this unless I really know it was definitely something. Okay. Or unless it's so obvious that it's something we've seen many, many times that we know is a certain something. So I don't often make definitive pronouncements about something because that's, I don't want to be accused of being arrogant about this stuff. It as a science guy, um, typically I'm already fighting against the nature to not be arrogant about it, right? I mean, science can be arrogant at times, and there's a lot of people that say, "Well, if it doesn't exist, if I don't see the evidence, it doesn't exist." Well, I'm not one of those guys. I mean, I've had things happen to me I cannot explain,
Right.
and they don't fit science. So, does that mean there's something wrong up here? Oh, maybe. Okay. But it could also mean that I experienced something that is not in our current understanding. And that's the way it is. That's the way life is. We have to be willing to accept those possibilities. And that's exactly what I think I do. Um,
Yeah.
and
Do you
again,
think that? All
I
right.
used to be that arrogant guy, by the way.
Well, let's just throw this out there.
Sure.
Neil deGrasse Tyson sees a dog on the floor. It's from another dimension. He steps through it and falls. Your really weird situation you had.
Yeah.
That if something like that happened to someone like him, if some of the things happen that have happened to you, and I know these things have happened to you, very strange things. How do you think someone like him that has an affront to, he's Mr. The UFOs mean nothing, and all this type of thing.
Well, let me correct a little something there. I mean, you're right about that, of course. But one of the things that I wanted to mention was, if Neil deGrasse Tyson was so against or so taking offense by UFOs, say, or taking offense by the lack of scientific evidence for UFOs, then why did he ask me for a LinkedIn connection? Okay. Clearly, I do what I do. Clearly, he's keeping his pulse on it without actually saying anything. He's lurking, right? Obviously, who wouldn't? It's the right thing to do. So I know that, that's something that is a very important thing in academia, is to not allow yourself to be blinded by your own science. And I think that in the past, I think people have accused him of being blinded by that science. But I think that he's understanding there might be more things out there that we don't understand. And that's as
Well,
much as we
yeah,
can expect.
right.
Right.
So I
And
want
I
to
said
just
that.
pull this up here because I think it's interesting. The
Okay.
Australian Melbourne UFO photo from 1966 is compelling, and I believe I have that image.
Was that in James Fox?
Yeah, and I think this is one heck of a photo, and I want to know your opinion of that.
Right away, the first thing I would say is, where's the rest of the photo? Because
That was just a one-off Polaroid.
yeah, and that's the photo from the Polaroid.
That photo is from that is a Polaroid, and James Fox in the Phenomenon showed the original Polaroid.
Okay. Right off the bat, what I would do is, I would analyze the reflections in that object and try to figure out what colors. Well, I could easily figure out the colors, I guess, that are in that reflection, and then look at the ground objects and see if there's anything in the ground objects that could be responsible, and try to, if possible, get a scale for anything that might be in that reflection, and that would tell us how far away it is, because that could be something somewhat large that's farther away, or something very small that's up close. Now,
That's true.
the entire photo is a little bit blurry, and it looks like the object and the house in the photo are about as blurred. So it could not have been moving too fast, especially if it's a Polaroid. Now, my son collects Polaroid cameras, and I have them upstairs. He's several kinds. And
There's someone that actually collects Polaroid cameras.
yeah, my
Okay.
son, he
All
actually
right.
collects a lot of cameras.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a film
Oh, that's
graduate.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and knows an awful lot about them.
Yeah.
And he would be able to look at that photo and tell you whether a Polaroid camera of whatever type that is said to have taken that picture could have produced that picture from an object moving fast through the picture. I think not. I think it's something that was either moving relatively slow or stationary. So
I
I
think,
don't know.
yeah, I'm trying to remember. James Fox did it when he was in Australia. He met with this gentleman that held up the picture and
Yep.
all that. And he tells the whole entire story. He was working in the garden, and that's all I remember. I don't remember any other
Okay.
details. But it
Yeah,
would
I don't
be.
remember from the phenomenon. I know that, you're a friend of mine, Lee Spiegel, worked on it together with James, and
Yeah.
I don't remember the details of that particular case there.
Yeah. You hear the crows in the background here?
I do.
It's the weirdest thing. You'd think this place would be full of seagulls, but the crows are eating crabs, and I'm just
Yeah.
unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking over.
Wow.
So, let's see if there's
So,
yes, there
I wanted to mention before we go much further,
yes.
in our live observatory Skytour live stream,
Oh,
which
yes, I wanted to talk
is
about
on
that.
YouTube.
Yeah.
That's the East Coast Observatory there that's being rehabbed and refurbished, and I'm going to be putting into a new building out here. But out in Arizona, we have an active building out there. Well, Sunday after our radio show that goes from 6 to 8, we're going to move right into a lunar eclipse stream, and we're going to actually stream the lunar eclipse live. Now, it'll already be well underway by the time we get in, but just keep this in mind. Last time we were looking at the moon during a lunar eclipse, we're one of 5 groups on the planet that actually caught a meteor strike the moon during the eclipse, right at the height of the eclipse, right in the red spot. You see it, boom.
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And
is so awesome.
at the time, we didn't know what we saw. So we let it go for the time because we figured, okay, we're going to research that when we're done. And by the time the stream was over, we had already found out that indeed it was a meteor that struck the moon. So we always have this, we have a phenomenal Skytour live stream family. And they just start researching and doing things. And they found out an awful lot about it before we even finished the stream that night. So that was pretty awesome. You know, these are good people. But
so tell the listening audience how they can get there for this coming event Saturday. You said,
yeah. See, we're live on YouTube on most clear nights out in Arizona. I'm in Connecticut, but I control it from here, and I use literally almost all free software to do it. So if anyone wants to learn how to control something long distance, you can do it for free, almost free. I think that's pretty cool. But we're on YouTube, and the channel is called Skytour Livestream with this guy right here, Marc D'Antonio, right there. That's me. That's a weird name. I never realized it's my name, but it's my name. And so Skytour, one word, live stream with Marc D'Antonio. Skytour Livestream, will find it. And just subscribe and join and come on in and just watch. And we've got well over 500 or 500 plus by a long shot past streams up there that we've done of the night sky. And our sky out there is so dark that it literally, when I first saw it, and I'm not too proud to say this, when I first saw it, I literally started crying. It was so beautiful. It was dead calm, dead quiet, and all that was over me was this velvety, beautiful sky with beautiful pinpoints of stars and Milky Way. And I was like, huh. It literally takes your breath away. And we have one of the top instruments in that building looking up at the sky every time it's clear and getting imagery, and is just unbelievable. We get in 10 to 15 to 20 seconds what it takes sometimes 10 to 20 to 30 minutes to get elsewhere. We can get things.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So most of our exposures, we'll do anywhere between 5 and 15 objects a night, you know, and taking long exposures of 20 seconds on them and then stacking them one on top of each other like an image sandwich to make them much more clear. And in 20 seconds, I mean, how long does it take to get 10 images, 10 stack images? 200 seconds. So in the time it takes to say what I'm saying now, we'd almost be done. So it's really cool. We almost don't have time to talk about the object, but I do every time. And, you know, I say, okay, this is a planetary nebula. It's remains of a star that has died. And, you know, the greenish blue colors because of this, the red colors because of that, you know, talk about the elements in the periodic table. But, you know, we talk about it in a way that makes people understand it, right? And
yes, you do. I've been in that. I've been watching a few times, and we've said hi to each other a number of times.
Yes, we have. You're a wonderful patron, and the thing is, when you know, last week or two, we've been looking at a supernova that occurred. It's occurred in another galaxy. Now, this galaxy is tens of millions of light years away, which means that the supernova, which showed up in our telescopes on one particular night, that light took tens of millions of years to get here.
Yeah,
it actually left before the dinosaurs died from that location and made it here.
So hard to fathom things like that.
Yes, well, the universe is a great big time machine, isn't it? We look back in time all the time.
I think of that all the time when
it's a great
I
big
look
time
out.
Machine.
Yeah, what we're seeing. And are we? Let me ask you a couple of astronomy questions because I've always enjoy picking your brains on things. How close could let me say it again. How close would a supernova? Probably depends on the size of it. Could happen. That could affect us. Could cause us problems.
Okay, now first part of your question, how you said depends on the size of it. A star of a certain mass will go supernova. That's a star way more massive than our sun. But if a star went supernova that was within, say, 4 light years, 5 light years of us, then we could be in trouble. And it might take 4 to 5 years for that energy to get here to bathe our planet in high energy X-rays or gamma rays. And that could be disastrous. However, there is no star that can do that to us. None of the stars near us are that massive that can cause such a problem for us. Now we are orbiting the galaxy, and we do come near other stars at times, and we don't, clearly we've gone around the galaxy almost 20 times since we formed here 4.5 billion years ago. And in that time, we've never encountered anything that was a Earth sterilizer event like that. And that would be a sterilizer event. It would destroy us. So clearly we're on the plus side of the problem here.
Right.
The chance wheel. We're on the plus side. So we're good.
I don't know if you.
Before I forget, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was starting to say that Skytour live stream is going to be live this weekend, Sunday, if it's clear out in Arizona, which it usually is. We have 300 clear nights a year there. We'll be live and broadcasting this eclipse. Now the eclipse starts right at sunset. In fact, out there it'll already be happening when the moon rises. But we're going to catch it just after our radio show, which is going to be around 8 o'clock. So around 8:10 or so in the evening Eastern time, we're going to be focusing on the moon, and it's going to be already blood red by that point. But you know what? That's the exciting thing. And then we'll watch it. We'll watch the Earth shadow pass off of it on the way out. So
I can't wait. I'm going to try to tune into that.
Yeah, we're going to watch and see if we can catch any meteors. And I'll probably be live before we end the radio show, and I'll show the live feed during the radio show if it's clear. And if it's cloudy, it doesn't matter. We can still do it if it's light clouds. So that should be pretty cool.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Fraser Cain.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I've listened to his show, and I can't remember who his co-host is. She's professor in Chicago area, I think. Anyway, he's got a funny saying that he says the universe is always trying to kill us.
That's right.
And so there are so many events, but one of the reason I'm bringing this up, don't you think that there should be more some type of protection for incoming if we have something that is in direct line, and this thing that happened back in Chelyabinsk, it was in direct line with the sun. We may not have time, of course, but don't you think there should be more? I mean, we invest in so many things. It seems like, if we had a planet killer coming our way, it seems like we'd want to try to be able to redirect it.
Well, you say something very interesting. Okay. And that is that we need to figure out a way to survive, say, the big impact or whatever. Well, that's what the DART project is all about. DART is going to see if colliding with an asteroid will allow us to nudge it just enough to change its orbit. Now, the asteroid it's going to hit is not an asteroid that can hurt us in any way, nor could it ever. But it's a test candidate. We're going to see if colliding with this object can move the asteroid enough so that over time, given we have the time, we would be able to nudge a killer asteroid out of our way. So if so, it's just a matter of mass and how many DART objects we hurl at it in order to get it to move.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be kind of interesting to see how this works.
Right.
So we do need more things for sure. The Chelyabinsk asteroid that came in, keep in mind that was fairly small, which is why it was hard to see.
Size of a bus.
Yeah, and fairly small is not necessarily dangerous, but the Chelyabinsk meteor did punch a 20-foot diameter hole in a frozen lake when it finally reached the ground. But again, keeping in mind that hole that it made was just a fragment of the overall larger object.
Right.
Okay. So we get hit with larger objects many times per year, a number of times. You can probably count them on two hands, probably like 10 times, 8 times, whatever, for a very large object. And they usually hit over the ocean. But I think they're also responsible for some of the mythical sounds that people hear. There was a giant sound heard over in England, and then in Nova Scotia. What was that? These mystery booms. What they might be are the sonic booms or the breakup booms of these giant objects coming in over the ocean, and the sound just travels. England,
How about that?
Nova Scotia.
You've heard people have been talking about those boom sounds, wondering what they are.
Could be that.
For years, I think Linda Moulton Howe actually does some stories on that, the people that are hearing these boom sounds and no explanation.
Yeah.
Never thought of it being carried off the ocean. Of course, if the Earth is 73% water or whatever it is, ocean, yeah, most of them are, 70% of them are going to land in the ocean.
Right. And keep
So,
in mind that these explosions are occurring not at 10,000 feet. These explosions are occurring at like 180,000 or more, maybe 80 miles up, 70
so they
miles
can
up.
really carry in the curvature of the Earth and all
Yeah.
that, right?
And the sound waves will be a lot lower amplitude up there because there's not enough air to conduct the sound waves because they're like a compression wave through the air. But if they do make it, they're going to be a big, long, low boom, and that's what the rumbling was heard. Rumbling in England, rumbling in Nova Scotia. Depending on the timing of when they were heard, you could kind of pinpoint where along that line the meteor came in. So if it's heard, because air, in air of a certain density, sound travels a certain speed. And if you can calculate how long it takes for the sound to get to Nova Scotia versus how long it gets to England and what time they actually heard it, and knowing the two times, the two places, you can figure out where along the line it happened. Was it right in between? Was it more toward Nova Scotia? Was it more toward England? And for instance, so you can figure out a substantial number of things just from the data about the sound.
Hmm.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that we have underwater listening hydrophones in our oceans, and these sounds, long low frequencies, if any of those hydrophones pick up that sound, then those are hard data points that we'll have.
And
And we
who
know that,
monitors those?
well, it's a U.S. Navy, it's a U.S. government. I
So
believe
would we ever?
NATO
We
has
would
their own
probably
listening.
never hear about anything, most likely.
Well, maybe, but see, the thing is, they would overlook it. They would say, okay, we just had this one spurious sound. Well, it's either geological, biological, or natural of some kind. They only care about listening for enemies, right? They have certain signatures for, say, certain submarines or certain warships, and they can say, oh yeah, well, this ship just left that port. Okay, okay, the type we got a cooler submarine that just fired up out of Murmansk, and it's on its way into the North Sea, the Barents Sea. You know, so I mean, you got all kinds of possibilities there. That's what they're listening for. They're not listening for whale farts, to be clear, blunt. Okay.
Yeah,
Although those would probably sound pretty funny if I had to
just
guess.
like the way they sing.
Just like the way they sing. That's right.
Yeah. Now, what about? Let's shift gears a little bit, and you think about life out there, the possibility of life out there. I have that great book that you wrote right in the other room in there. And what is the title to that book?
It's called The Populated Universe.
Yeah.
It's my treatise on a subject that life in the universe may very well be the norm, not the exception.
Yeah. And
Um,
that probably is. I agree with that
yeah.
one statement. But let me just ask you your thoughts on, we think about life on planets, but
Yeah.
what about moons like Jupiter's moon, Europa, something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it
then we
doesn't
have
have to be intelligent
planets.
life, but just plain life.
Yeah, and that's something we will probably find, I think, in the next 10 to 15 years, maybe. Um, we'll also notice, because of our planet hunting capability, that um, Proxima b, the planet one of the two planets that's around Proxima Centauri, 4.3 light years away, uh, also has a potentially interesting um, uh, characteristics that could foster life, perhaps. I mean, clearly the star is a very it's a flaring star, so we see a lot of ultraviolet flares. But the sun in its early life was also a very ultraviolet prone star, and it would do these flares as well. So that said, if we're looking at, say, Proxima b, well, then we know that Proxima b might actually be a, a planet that could possibly support some form of life, right? Um, now, what was the rest of your question? Because I was
Well, I was asking. It doesn't have to be on a planet.
no, yeah, that's right. But okay, but we know of we know that there are planets with moons out there other than within our solar system. We can see evidence that there are moons around other planets in other star systems. So, is it possible life could form there? Yes. Okay, Europa, as you mentioned, Europa around Jupiter. We have Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Those are the 4 Galilean satellites that Galileo famously used to get tried for heresy. Okay, and Europa is an ice-encrusted moon, and it has what seems to be a watery ocean beneath that icy crust.
Yeah, it doesn't have like volcanic, like ice volcanoes.
Yeah,
Water volcanoes.
geysers of
Geysers.
H2O. Yeah, and the Hubble Space Telescope was able to characterize that hydrogen and oxygen coming out of those geysers. You could see it. So what that means is if we have a possibility that life in a sub-ice ocean on Earth could form, and we know it has, and I'll explain that in a minute, then we know that on Europa, there's also a possibility that it could happen. Here on Earth, you'd never expect life to be existent a mile beneath the ice in Antarctica. But there's a lake, and some of your listeners are probably saying, I know the lake. It's Lake Vostok. And you'd be right. Lake Vostok is been sealed off from the world above for thousands, tens of thousands of years. And this particular lake, when they probed it, finally, they went down. It hosts well over 3,000 different species of microscopic life.
Amazing.
And this lake has its own cycles. There's the carbon cycle. Okay, that's very important for dead things. They go down, they decompose. The carbon goes back into the cycle and then starts anew into new objects. Okay, into new creatures. That is something. Cycles are very important. We have the water cycle here on Earth, right, with the atmosphere. Water evaporates, goes up, falls back down as rain, fertilizes plants, waters plants, and then keeps on going over and over. These cycles are really, really important. And it's not just water and carbon. There's other cycles too. There's a methane cycle. Okay. Waste products, you have to deal with them and then make them not toxify the environment. And that happens too. So if it happened here, then it could happen there. That's my whole point. See?
Right.
And that's a very good possibility.
Yeah.
So, and Lake Vostok's a good test case because Lake Vostok is among the coldest places on Earth, if not the coldest.
Amazing. Yeah. And then there's many cases where life has survived where it just seems totally impossible. And acidic and
the creatures, remember the creatures in Lake Vostok don't depend on sunlight. There is none. So they don't make energy through photosynthesis like the sun-loving creatures do, that we are and plants are, right? They use chemosynthesis, the chemical creation of energy. And that's what life on Europa or on Saturn's moon Enceladus might do.
Now, I've always thought that all living things depended on the energy originating from the sun.
In the end, they would, because they would. The situation they're in would have been brought about by a flourishing of life that led to these other life forms that are microbial, for instance. Okay. And that would mean that life that is in Lake Vostok might have once been at the surface when Antarctica wasn't frozen, but then over time evolved to a deep ice locked lake. And thus the life forms changed and adapted, mutated and adapted, evolved to accept that environment and flourish in that environment. Certainly many did not, but many probably did and have at least 3,000 species that we know of down there. That's a lot of species. That's a lot of creatures down there that have figured out a way to eke out some type of existence. Right.
Amazing.
Also, keep in mind that on Mars, Mars is an interesting planet too, because Mars has this atmosphere made mostly of carbon dioxide, and the Perseverance rover has this really cool little experiment the size of a car battery that is really, really interesting. And this car battery sized object undertook an experiment by the nickname MOXIE, MOXIE. And MOXIE was the Mars Oxygen In Situ experiment. And what that meant was it was trying to see if it could convert the carbon dioxide atmosphere of Mars to breathable oxygen. And it was a wonderful success. What's that mean? It means that sooner or later, when we colonize Mars, we don't have to bring our air, man. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it from carbon dioxide, and that is something that I think is really, really important because when you breathe out carbon dioxide from your lungs, well, what does that say? That says that we're going to be able to recycle the CO2 and make oxygen from that. Now you see, we're
Pretty
becoming the
exciting.
spacefaring race, and that's going to be the coolest thing. And on the south pole of Mars, deep under that polar ice cap, the south polar ice cap, there's actually this large reservoir of liquid water. Why is it liquid? I thought we couldn't have liquid water on Mars. Well, you can at depth because you have the weight of the overlying strata increases the pressure at depth so that liquid water could exist. And this was found with an orbital radar mapping system. And this water reservoir could potentially house microbial life. Now, that would be kind of like the final vestige of where life would have ended up on Mars, because Mars used to have a much thicker atmosphere and used to have water running on its surface, right?
Yeah.
You know that.
Had a magnetosphere too.
And yes, that's a very good point. And that's the reason why Mars doesn't have water on the surface now, in the end, because Mars lost its magnetic field, which is what you call the magnetosphere correctly. And the magnetosphere on Earth protects us from the sun's harmful radiation. In fact, the magnetic field traps particles from the sun that are coming to us, and it could spell cancerous disasters for us and rip us apart with its high energy ultraviolet radiation. However, some of it gets through, but most of it gets stopped. These high energy particles, the solar wind particles, and those solar wind particles trapped in our magnetic field are what people recognize as the Van Allen radiation belts. And that's where those come from. They're actually our magnetic fields brought to visibility essentially through our instrumentation and because of the solar wind getting trapped in the magnetic field.
Do you think there's a chance of the weakening of our magnetic field?
Our magnetic field changes, and this is another one of those pseudoscientific things you see online. Oh, the Earth's magnetic field is going to flip. Whoa, no, the Earth is going to flip upside down. Does that mean we're going to see the South Pole stars or the Southern stars? No, it doesn't. What's happening is the same thing that happens to the sun every 11 years. Okay, the sun's magnetic field gets twisted up as it rotates. The magnetic field lines get twisted up, and then they basically pop and realign effectively, and that creates the sunspot cycle. All right, where it gets knotted up, then it evens out for a while, then it gets twisted up again, and does the same thing. Well, the Earth is different only because the Earth is smaller, its magnetic field is different, but we do have cases where the magnetic field does wander. The North Pole that was magnetic north back in 1960, for instance, is not in the same spot that it is in 2020, 2021. Okay. But it's not like it's going, whoa, it's flipping like it's going to flip overnight and everybody's going to die and all the buildings are going to smash. And yeah. Well, see, the thing is, animals have had millions of years of evolution to deal with what is called properly geomagnetic reversal. And geomagnetic reversal has happened quite a few times. How do we know? Well, in the mid-Atlantic Ocean, that's where these two plates collide, right? We have these two tectonic plates that collide, and when new material is made and comes out and oozes out, as it cools, the iron crystals inside that rock form in a certain direction, effectively, based on what the magnetic field is at the time. And guess what we see when we do samples along that magnetic ridge? We see magnetic crystals that say are this way and then this way, and it keeps going back and forth over a period of thousands of years, and it takes thousands of years for the switch to occur. So you see times when they're muddy and when they're not quite right, but then you have a distinctive, predominance of this direction, then a predominance of this direction. So we see this geomagnetic reversal is a thing that happens. It's related to how the inner core of the Earth and the outer core of the Earth are moving against each other. And it does happen. But it's not one of these things that happens so fast that everything is going to fail and we're all going to die. That's just another YouTube video.
Yeah. Can we keep up with the technology and switching things over so things would still work?
We have been. Things have been changing. You get an update on your GPS recently?
You don't know, but it did probably, right?
Do. You get internal updates on GPS. Well, it happens, every few years or whatever. You get a major update to your GPS and so forth. And maybe it's a quiet update, but you know what? We're gradually taking care of it. We're gradually just following the magnetic field and changing accordingly as we go. So guess what? The geomagnetic reversal will come when it comes, and we'll be there when we're there and say, I guess we're in it now, or I guess it happened already.
Nothing to sweat about.
We could be in the middle of it.
Yeah.
In fact, we probably are. The pole is shifting slightly. Every year it's shifting a little bit, and maybe that's the geomagnetic, but not the physical pole. The magnetic field is shifting a little bit. Right. It doesn't mean we're going to be suddenly exposed to the sun's harmful rays and the radiation belt's going to go away and the UV radiation is going to burn us all alive. That's not going to happen. Okay, that can't happen. Earth is big and it takes a long time to happen,
Right. Are you familiar with slimes? No sun energy required?
I think that question is referring to slime molds.
Oh, the molds.
I think it's a slime mold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eukaryotic organisms are called, and basically, a slime mold. Think of it as like a colony, sort of a group of smaller creatures forming together to make a larger whole. Kind of like. Not quite like fungi, not quite like, like a mushroom's a fungus, right? But slime molds are interesting in their own right as well, and are probably related to how life started here. Actually, I talk about them when I do the toilet paper history of the Earth.
I love that. That is just so helpful to someone who has a hard time understanding numbers. And I think I heard it that most people can, I want to say the human brain, but most people can understand about 10,000, the number 10,000. Yeah. And then when it goes above that, we can't really comprehend things. And just quickly, if you would, I know we're out of time. We're going over time here, but can you tell, I love this thing. And when you and I first met, you were doing this. Tell what you do about the toilet paper, and I think you're going to reintroduce that or something, aren't you?
I got a new way to do it. So here's the thing: the Earth formed 4.6 billion years ago. So in that time, it's like, what's a billion? What's a million? And you said 10,000, but I say people don't have the ability to recognize basically more than 1,000 things. As an example, when the Titanic sunk, 1,500 people died. Well, 1,500 people couldn't really imagine that. So what they did was they put 1,500 people on the docks where the Titanic left from and took that picture, and that sunk in.
I see. Okay? Wow.
Seeing the visual, all right, engages the eyes and the visual part of the brain and the intellectual part of the brain. And you need that double stimulus. When I did this toilet paper thing, I wanted to show people the scale of the universe and time. So I had this 120-foot roll of toilet paper, and I ended up creating the history of the universe, history of the Earth on it. I started with the formation of the Earth and led all the way up to the other end of the toilet paper, 120 feet away, with us in that room. And Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis, was actually a a line that was about a pencil line away from the present day at that scale. A little more than a pencil line. So it really was a way to show people that the Earth history accelerated over time. There was a lot of nothing going on for billions of years, and then the dinosaurs came along, and people think that's ancient history, but it's not. The dinosaurs were 18 inches from where we were at the end of that toilet paper. Dinosaurs were just here, 18 inches away.
Amazing.
And there was like 117 more feet to go. See, so it really puts it in perspective. Dinosaurs are recent history, not ancient history.
It's really something. And you and I had a conversation recently when we were out in Arizona, and that was, and we don't really have to go into it much, but I want you to touch on a little bit. You said the possibility if the dinosaurs didn't get wiped out, their brains could have been growing larger and larger, and they could have been more of an intelligent species through evolution eventually, possibly.
Wait, we're talking about the Troodon, Troodon. Okay, the Troodon was a creature that when it died, there was evidence that its cranial capacity was increasing. Does that mean it was getting smarter? Maybe, say, from like the dumbest breed of dog to the smartest breed of dog. Okay, I mean, so nothing like magical, like they're about to invent nuclear power or anything like that. But because only dumb people invent nuclear power. But the fact is, the Troodon ended up showing some kind of change that was interesting. So that said, we speculate, and that's all it is speculation, of course, that maybe if the Chicxulub impactor never occurred, then dinosaurs wouldn't have been wiped out. We would never have become the dominant species again, potentially. And then what would happen? Would we be intelligent reptilian creatures? Who knows? But it's fun to speculate, right? Now,
I love it. Yeah.
The thing that's interesting is 252 million years ago was the Permian period. And during that period, creatures that would become mammals were dominant until there was this great extinction event, which killed 98% of life on Earth, probably from large-scale volcanic eruptions that raised the temperature on the Earth by 21 degrees Celsius.
Huge.
In just a few months. That's huge. And that shut down all the ecosystems. Plankton died off, and that killed off many, many creatures. But some survived. And so the things that would become mammals basically went into hiding and evolved into smaller creatures that didn't require as much energy. And then over time, when the dinosaurs came along, and that was actually the beginning of the age of the dinosaurs, actually, when the Permian period started or ended. And then after that, when the dinosaurs ended, well, now those little creatures that would become mammals were still hiding in the shadows. And there was all these niches that opened up. Ooh, I can go there now. Ooh, that food is amazing. I can have that food now. Or I'm going to start doing this. Or look at that. And our oxygen levels are great again. Hey, we made the Earth great again, right? So then they're going to go and they breathe this oxygen. Off they go, and they change and they evolve, and they eventually become us. I know I left out so many things in between, but that's effectively how it was. So what it shows me is that in general, could we say, and I can't say this is true, but could we say that perhaps mammal-like life is sort of like the norm on a planet? Is that like a template? Because it was sort of like on its way to mammalian life back in the Permian. And then when the dinosaurs died off, it became mammalian life again, which is us. So that's a strong thing. That's a thing to think about. Not necessarily something to say and hang your hat on and say that's what it is. But that's definitely
but could be a dominant.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
Well,
maybe.
Mark, it's been awesome as always. It's always fun talking to you, whether we're on air or off air. Now, can you just once again throw how people can watch this on Sunday around sunset? You said, what time would that be Eastern time?
Okay,
should they tune in?
Yeah. Okay. At sunset on Eastern time. Let's see now.
7-ish, 7 something.
Yeah. Let me just look here and give you an idea. Okay. So the eclipse is going to begin, right? let's see, 7:59 Arizona time. No, sorry about that. 7:59, 10:59 Eastern time. And the total eclipse will be at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then from there it just fades off and goes. It takes the same amount of time to go on as it does to come out from behind the sun, or come out from behind the Earth. And this is a total eclipse, so we're going to see a blood moon again. It's going to be a blood red moon in the sky. You're used to seeing a full moon at the full moon, but this is going to be a blood red moon. You could actually miss it. You could look for it in the sky and say, "Where's the moon?" Wow. I saw one lunar eclipse that was so blood red that in mildly light polluted skies, it was hard to find the moon. Pretty cool. But we're going to have our telescopes on it. And that'll be Sunday starting at 8 p.m., 8:05 p.m. is when we'll start. But we have our KGRA radio show, Skytour Radio, which is our astronomy show from 6 to 8 on KGRA, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then right afterwards, we're going to go into the stream and join the stream live.
Excellent. Well, I will put a link in the notes or a link in the text of this show.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing everybody out there. We just love astronomy. It's what we do.
Yes. And I love what you do, Mark. Thank you very much. And thanks for being on this show.
Thank you so much.
All right. And talk to you soon. All right, everyone. So we have Sean Cahill on next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky.